Clash of the Classics.
Hey everyone, I'm Donnie. I'm your guide here in Horsepower for an hour. Tom Spence is our partner in crime here. He is our historian for these battles. And Mr. Glenn Eldridge, he is our commentator. He is a newest panel member here on the show, and it's great to have him on the team. If you're new to our show, maybe you've just discovered us, here's what you're going to find. Every week we roll the clock back. We pit two classic models against one another. We go head-to-head with styling. We look at powertrain stuff. We talk about internal design, exterior stuff. Then we vote on the car that we like best. One rule here, and that is to have fun, and we welcome you to join us and let us know which car you prefer. These battles are fueled by the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. ATRA is the largest transmission network in the world. Visit them anytime at atra.com. All right, today it's the 1971 Plymouth Roadrunner battling the 1971 Chevelle. And before we get started with the Roadrunner, I thought about you, Glenn, because I know this is the 1970s, and this is probably one of your favorite decades to kind of talk about. So I'm looking forward to your responses here.
Cool.
But this 71 Roadrunner, it marked the end of the Belvedere era and the beginning of the Plymouth Satellite era. And I really liked both cars. The Belvedere was one of my favorite Plymouth models. But even most of the Plymouth critics, I think then and even now, were giving the new exterior design some high praises. Car was definitely a cool, curvy, I guess, kind of muscle-looking design. The 255 horsepower big block 400 was essentially a 383 that they bored out, and most of the parts, except for the pistons, believe it or not, were completely interchangeable between both the 383 and the 400. Plymouth also offered it with a big block 440 engine, and you remember this engine had the three deuces on top, the three two-barrel carburetors, and that was rated at 385 horsepower. That big 426 Hemi Elephant engine with the dual quads was rated at 425 horsepower. Transmission, many of you will remember probably the best part of the car, most durable transmission of the time period was the TorqueFlite 727. They also offered it with a 4-speed manual transmission, but here in this particular car, that automatic transmission was definitely the home run hitter. Interior and dash layout were essentially the same as the Dodge Charger. To me, it was unique. It wasn't really laid out symmetrical. It was more asymmetrical than any other design I'd ever seen in the past, and it was surprisingly comfortable with a pretty decent suspension for the early 70s. So I'll start with you, Glenn. You know, this B body for Dodge really netted them heavy profits in the 70s, and now for the owners here in the 2017-2018 era, it is really netting some owners some serious profits because these cars have really gone up in value.
Yeah, they certainly have. I mean, you know, everybody looks back into the 70s. It brings back a lot of great memories. Cruising Main Street, just, you know, driving around, taking it to the drag strips or whatever it might be. And today's world, you know, we keep going back to the 70s. You know, these the new Mustangs, the Challengers, and all these cars are doing the same thing. It was a great era, great time.
And then Spence, on this Roadrunner, I know your brother had a GTO. And so in the 70s, you're no stranger to these models. I like the Plymouth, the Mopar, GTO, and the Fords were great, but for some reason the Plymouth and the Dodges of the 70s were absolutely cool.
My best friend Phil, cross-country runner back in the day, he had a 1971 Roadrunner.
Really?
And it was a blast to drive, but I will tell you, it was a blast while driving because when you drove anywhere, if you wanted to talk, you were like yelling over jet engines. The car was so bloody loud. And the stereo system was a joke. He had the best stereo in the world. You only heard it when you're at a stoplight. And it was a blast of a car, and it was a looker. You know, it turned heads everywhere. But, man, you needed ear protection when you drove that car.
Yeah, 68, 69, and 70 Dodge Charger, or 71 Dodge Charger, Plymouth Roadrunner, those cars to me here today, no question about it, if I had a chance to get one. But here's the thing. Originally, Plymouth produced just under 12,000 of these cars. The original MSRP was about $3,147. Today, the car begins at about $50,000. That's where it starts and then just goes from there. So, I mean, if you've got one that is numbers matching, that is a true survivor car, it could be well into the six figures. So it's It's a car that would be cool to have, just not sure if I would have the bank account to get it, but I do enjoy the car. I sure wish I would have gotten one 30, 40 years ago when the price point was far less than what it is today. Before I go any further, though, I do want to mention, if you've got a transmission concern, you even think you've got a transmission problem, you got to visit them at atra.com. ATRA is the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. They are the largest transmission network in the world, and they're the largest for a reason, because they know what they're doing. Got to get you over to atra.com. That's where you're going to want to be. You're going to find a list of shops that are across the country that can help you resolve your transmission issues quickly and usually for a pretty inexpensive ticket. So atra.com, that's where you're going to want to be. Let's talk about that 1971 Chevelle now. 71 was the year Chevy dropped the quad-style headlight, or the two on each side, that design, in favor of the single light on each side. Also, because of some new emission standards, the performance options were pretty significantly reduced. I remember this car. I liked it a bunch when it was released. I wish I had one today. Chevy offered it in two different styles, a sports coupe and then the four-door sedan. Now, the SS package was known as the Z15, and this thing had only one engine option. That was the big block LS5 454 cubic inch displacement, rated at 365 horsepower. This is the Chevelle that you'd really want to have. If you could choose any of the models, that's the one you'd want to go. The sports coupe was equipped with a 350 and a 4-barrel that was rated at 270 horsepower. The transmission options were the 350, the 400, those are both automatics, and then that Muncie 4-speed. Any one of those transmissions are time tested for sure. The Power Glide was also available, but it was kind of a seldom seen option. I do remember working on a couple cars that had Power Glides, but the Turbo 350 was, at least in my recollection, as I look back, that was the most plentiful. Original MSRP was a bit less than the Plymouth, coming in at about $2,807, so just a little less. And today, this car begins at about $20,000, depending on the model that you have. But it can go up well into the $60,000, $80,000. I've got a guy, one of our customers over at the horsepower division, that he's got a beautiful 1970, and I think he paid $55,000 for it. So depends on what the build is, how well the car has survived, and some different factors. But Spence, I'll start with you. Between these two cars, Chevelle and Roadrunner, I know you had friends that had the Roadrunner. What do you think of the Chevelle, and which one do you like?
If I was going to the drive-in to perhaps see Dirty Harry or Harold and Maude or any of these other great movies like Billy Jack, that was out at the time. Remember
Billy Jack, yeah. Great movie.
I'm going to put this boot on that side of your head, and there's not a thing you can do about it. Yeah, Billy Jack, One Tin Soldier. I, on looks, shall go for the Chevelle. Sorry, Phil. I enjoyed your Roadrunner immensely, and we had a blast, but I just think the Chevelle's prettier. I know I'm losing some money here, but I think it's a better looking ride.
Well, in 71, too, before I go over to Glenn, when was that gas crisis where they had to, if you were odd and even, was that 71 or was that 74?
I think it was a click up.
Okay, so 71 was a bit early.
I think it was around 74 when we had our first wait in line for gas line.
Yeah, I remember that, not well, but
gas was 40 cents in 71.
Holy smokes. All right, so we got one Chevelle. Mr. Glenn, who do you like?
I remember just fresh out of high school, going to the used car lot and seeing that Chevelle sitting on the lot. That was a 69. It had 396,
nice, yeah.
4-speed. It was black. It was beautiful. I didn't buy it, unfortunately. But ever since then, I just had this love for Chevelles. It's just, it's all Chevelle for me.
Okay, but on the Plymouth, you didn't care for that at all?
I didn't say I didn't care for it.
Mm-hmm. But you like the Chevelle better.
Oh yeah.
Well, what do you think of the Plymouth?
I like them, except the front nose. I've always felt they were a little bit long.
That's the thing. It's funny. That's the thing I like about it, especially on the Charger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the back end starts kind of wide and aggressive, and then as it goes up, closer to the front, it starts getting more narrow. And then on the Charger, especially I think 69 was shorter, but the 70 and 71 had the grill that kind of gave it another 1.5 or 2 inches worth of length, and to me it just looked really cool. It's almost like an eel going down the road, like an eel in the water. Gosh, it was really cool. I enjoyed the heck out of those cars. So you're going to roll with the Chevelle as well. Okay, then we do have a little bit of a problem because I'm outnumbered here. I'm going to roll with, as much as I like the Chevelle, and I do wish I had one. I'm going to roll with that Mopar. There's just no way that it was so unique and so cool and such a departure from anything before or since that I can see why the Mopar value has gone through the roof, especially in the Challenger and the Charger area, the Roadrunner. Remember the old Plymouth Super Bs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all of those cars, the B bodies have gotten to the place where you can't get close to it unless you've got six figures in your wallet. You've got to be pretty well off to be able to have quite a bit of disposable income to be able to afford this car. But if you can, as Mr. Ferris Bueller would say, we highly recommend it, because what a thrill ride. I like the Dodge Charger quite a bit. To me, that is the car to have.
And you're not spending 40 cents on gas anymore per gallon. So you're going to get dinged a bit on that, because I think they get the same gas mileage they used to get.
Now, do you think in 30 or 40 or 50 years someone will convert the old classic car to fully electric?
Well, the Link Volt.
That would be
Okay, wait a minute.
Neil Young did the Link Volt.
So it might just work. You put an
the
electric
Link Volt.
motor on each car, and in each corner now you got a 66 Mustang.
When
Yeah,
I
but
grow up, I want an electric car.
But you need these big 600-watt speakers on there for the motor.
Yeah, for sure, because you won't be able to hear it. Yeah, exactly right. Well, before we go to break, I want to mention, if you've got a transmission problem, if you have any sort of an issue, let me remind you, the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association is the largest transmission network in the world. If you've got a trans concern at all, I've got to get you over to atra.com. Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association make our Clash of the Classics possible each and every week. Thanks so much to those guys. And if you've got a transmission concern, take it from me. You got to get to atra.com. Folks, we got a bunch more coming up. We'll check in with the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. And with so much fake news and misinformation going on in our world today, the question is going to be, how can the ordinary consumer, guys like us, make informed decisions? You don't want to miss that. Stay in your seats. We'll be right back. We are your ultimate stop in automotive radio. We are horsepower for an hour.